We're going to go live right now. U.S. President Joe Biden is speaking on the collapse of two major financial institutions. Let's listen in.
These banks will be fired. If the bank is taken over by FDIC, the people running the bank should not work there anymore. Third, investors in the banks will not be protected. They knowingly took a risk, and when the risk didn't pay off, investors lose their money. That's how capitalism works. And fourth, there are important questions of how these banks got into the circumstance in the first place. We must get the full accounting of what happened and why those responsible can be held accountable. In my administration, no one is above the law. And finally, we must reduce the risks of this happening again. During the Obama-Biden administration, we put in place tough requirements on banks like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, including the Dodd-Frank law to make sure that the crisis we saw in 2008 would not happen again. Unfortunately, the last administration rolled back some of these requirements. I'm going to ask Congress and the banking regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to make it less likely this kind of bank failure would happen again, and to protect American jobs and small businesses. Look, the bottom line is this. Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe. Let me also assure you, we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed. On top of all of it, let's also take a look at a moment to put the situation in a broader context. We've made strong economic progress in the past 2 years. We've created more than 12 million new jobs, more jobs in 2 years than any president has ever created in a single 4-year term. Unemployment is below 4% for 14 straight months. Take-home pay for workers is going up, especially for lower and middle-income workers. And we've seen record numbers of people apply to start new businesses, more than 10 million of them, more than 10 million applications over the last 2 years starting businesses. Now we need to keep this progress going. That's what swift action that my administration over the past few years is all about. Protecting depositors, protecting the banking system, protecting the economic gains we've made together for the American people. Thank you, God bless you, and may God protect our troops. See you in California.
Mr. President, what do you know right now about why this happened? And can you assure Americans that there won't be a ripple effect?
Do you expect other banks to fail, Mr.
Well, U.S.
President?
President Joe Biden addressing the latest fallout of a major U.S. bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and the potential collapse, responding to and giving an update on what could be the fallout for investors. Meanwhile, Canada's banking regulator is responding to the fallout from the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. The Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions has temporarily seized assets of the Canadian branch to preserve their value. The regulator says the bank operates as a foreign bank branch based in Toronto, which it supervises. Silicon's business in Canada is primarily lending to corporate clients. The branch does not hold any commercial or individual deposits. Meanwhile, HSBC will buy the UK subsidiary of Silicon Valley Bank. The Bank of England says it facilitated the deal. The agreement ensures the security of more than $8 billion of deposits. And the UK's finance minister says the SVP rescue is critical to protecting the country's technology industry.
We were faced with a situation where we could have seen some of our most important companies, our most strategic companies, wiped out, and that would have been extremely dangerous. We have built, over the last decade, the third largest tech economy in the world, after only China and the United States. So it's very important to us as a country that this sector thrives. And that's why the Prime Minister, the Bank of England, were all rolling our sleeves up over the weekend to make sure we had a solution.
We spoke to Diana Avigdor, Vice President and Head of Trading at Barometer Capital, about the response taking shape.
The ecosystem of the banking trust system is going to be put to question, although Canadian banks are in a much different situation than the U.S. banks. The U.S. regionals were not subject to some of the regulatory requirements, which were quite stringent and a lot more stringent in Canada than in the U.S.
The Hong Kong stock market rose today after the U.S. government stepped in to reassure depositors. Before trading began in Asia, the U.S. Treasury Department, Federal Reserve, and FDIC said that all Silicon Valley Bank clients will be protected and have access to their funds.